the real underground cities that mysteriously vanished. The Earth conceals cities whose stories were almost entirely lost to history. From the ancient labyrinths of Cusco to the shadowed vaults of Edinburgh, these underground civilizations have vanished in ways that defy explanation. What drove people to carve entire lives into stone, tunnels, and earth? Why were some of these subterranean worlds abandoned or sealed, leaving only whispers of their existence? This video explores the real underground cities that mysteriously disappeared, revealing the secrets, legends, and discoveries that continue to baffle historians and explorers. Go below the surface and uncover hidden chambers where history, survival, and mystery meet, showing a side of civilization hidden from the sunlight and lingering in silence. Derinkuyu, Turkey, the city that vanished beneath the earth. Beneath the rolling landscape of Cappadocia in central Turkey lies one of the most astonishing discoveries ever made, an entire underground city known as Derinkuyu. Hidden for centuries beneath the soil and volcanic rock, this vast subterranean world was revealed by accident in the 1,960 seconds when a resident knocked down a wall in his home and uncovered a secret passageway. That chance encounter opened the way to a labyrinth stretching down more than 280 feet, with at least 18 connected levels that once sheltered thousands of people. Derinkuyu is not a small cluster of rooms carved into stone. It is a fully realized city beneath the earth, complete with homes, storage chambers, churches, wine presses, wells, and even ventilation shafts designed to bring in fresh air. Archaeologists have marveled at how carefully engineered the complex is, especially considering it was carved by hand in an age long before advanced tools or machinery. Massive circular stone doors, some weighing hundreds of pounds, could seal off tunnels to block invaders. Narrow passageways made it difficult for enemies to move in groups, turning the city itself into a defensive fortress. What makes Derinkuyu so mysterious is not only its size, but also the question of why it was abandoned. Historical records show that the region of Cappadocia faced waves of conflict, from Persian and Roman expansion to Arab-Byzantine wars. Underground refuges would have provided safety during turbulent times, yet Derinkuyu is so vast and so carefully built that it seems to have been more than just a temporary hideout. At its height, it is believed to have supported tens of thousands of people, enough to sustain an entire community for months at a time. Then, at some unknown point, the people left. The underground city was deserted, and no written record explains the reason. Walking through its tunnels today, one cannot escape the feeling that life once moved quickly through these stone corridors. Long hallways still echo with silence, where the sounds of families and prayers must have filled the air. The presence of communal spaces, such as churches, suggests that it was not simply a shelter of fear, but a place where daily life, worship and trade could continue even underground. Wells that reached deep into the earth ensured a supply of water that could not be poisoned from above. Everything about Derinkuyu suggests planning, order, and permanence. Yet the city itself vanished, as if swallowed by time. Hidden niches along the walls suggest that families may have kept small lamps burning in the darkness, filling the air with smoke that clung to the ceilings and left faint marks still visible today. The rediscovery of Derinkuyu has raised many questions that remain unanswered. Who first began carving its earliest tunnels? Some scholars trace its origins to the Phrygians around the 8th century BCE, while later groups, such as early Christians, expanded and deepened it. However, the deeper one goes, the harder it becomes to pinpoint who lived there first. Layers of construction suggest generations of people added to it, yet no one left inscriptions or carvings to explain its story. The silence of its walls is one of its greatest enigmas. The city's abandonment is equally puzzling. Cappadocia remained inhabited above ground, and nearby towns flourished over the centuries, but Derinkuyu disappeared from memory until its accidental discovery. How could a place of such scale, capable of sheltering an entire population, simply fade from the collective knowledge of a region? The absence of records creates a gap that fuels speculation. Some imagine that wars or plagues forced its desertion. Others believe shifting political powers made underground life unnecessary, leaving the city to fall into disuse. Yet none of these explanations is backed by definitive evidence. What remains undeniable is that Derinkuyu is real. Its stone passages open for anyone to walk through. It is not a myth whispered through folklore, but a physical city that once thrived beneath the earth and then vanished from history. Standing in its carved chambers, one can sense the presence of lives once lived in secrecy, safety, and perhaps desperation. But the deeper one goes, the stronger the feeling that something important has been lost, something that no historian has yet been able to restore. To this day, Derinkuyu remains a city that vanished beneath the earth, leaving behind its empty halls and unanswered questions. Shambhala, Tibet, the hidden kingdom beyond reach. Ancient Buddhist texts speak of a secret land known as Shambhala, a radiant kingdom said to lie hidden somewhere beyond the mountains of Tibet. Unlike other realms that can be traced in ruins or maps, Shambhala has always existed on the edge of vision, described as both a physical place and a state of purity. The earliest written accounts portray it as a hidden sanctuary where peace reigns and wisdom flourishes, guarded against the corruption of the outside world. Some Tibetan traditions describe Shambhala as a city paved with rare metals and illuminated by a light that never fades, a vision of perfection hidden from a troubled world. Generations of seekers have set out to find this hidden realm, convinced that its gates would open only to those with pure hearts and unwavering devotion. From early pilgrims in the Himalayas to modern travelers drawn by stories of a lost utopia, the search has never ended. Each expedition adds to the legend, with travelers returning to say the path seemed close yet always slipped away into the mist. European scholars, who encountered the story in the 17th century, often confused it with El Dorado or other lost realms, showing how easily Shambhala crossed cultural borders. Though no map reveals its location, Shambhala continues to live vividly in stories, as real to believers as any kingdom marked on paper. Tibetan lamas spoke of it as a city of shining palaces and radiant gardens, yet they also insisted its entrance is invisible to ordinary eyes. To many, this invisibility is not a sign of absence, but a proof of its sacred nature, concealed until humanity is ready to find it. Accounts from Russian explorer Nicholas Roerich in the 1922 describe conversations with Tibetan lamas who insisted Shambhala was real, hidden behind remote valleys and guarded by unseen forces. Snow peaks and shifting clouds are often described as veils guarding Shambhala, nature itself said to conspire in keeping the kingdom beyond reach. Travelers through the Himalayas have long spoken of passes that suddenly vanish, valleys that twist upon themselves, and paths that seem to circle endlessly. These tales suggest that the mountains themselves protect the hidden city, ensuring that it remains untouched by conquest or discovery. The Kalachakra Tantra, a revered Buddhist scripture, describes Shambhala not only as a hidden kingdom, but as a center of cosmic balance. According to its verses, it is a place where rulers uphold truth and compassion, where knowledge is preserved, and where a final battle between light and darkness will one day begin. Such descriptions blur the line between geography and prophecy, making the city seem both part of the earth and beyond it. The legend speaks of 32 kings who ruled Shambhala in an unbroken line, each said to preserve sacred teachings that remain unseen by the outside world. In the centuries of Mongol rule, the legend of Shambhala travelled far beyond Tibet, shaping visions of hidden empires across Central Asia and even influencing political rulers who believed in its power. Even as centuries passed and empires rose and fell, the story of Shambhala never faded from the Tibetan imagination. Monks spoke of it during rituals, and storytellers passed down its promise through generations. For people often facing hardship in harsh landscapes, the idea of a perfect refuge beneath distant mountains gave hope and strength. Modern spiritual movements in the West adopted Shambhala as a symbol of inner awakening, turning the lost kingdom into both a geographical mystery and a metaphor of enlightenment. Its presence in cultural memory is as enduring as stone, even though no stone structure has ever been uncovered to prove its existence. Expeditions launched in the 19th and 20th centuries searched the Himalayas for evidence of the hidden city, yet all returned empty-handed, deepening the sense that Shambhala retreats whenever it is sought too directly. Whispers among Himalayan villagers tell of sudden lights seen on distant peaks, signs they believe mark the unseen gates of Shambhala, opening for a fleeting moment before closing again. For many, the power of Shambhala lies not in proof of its existence, but in the hope it awakens, a vision of a perfect realm untouched by suffering. Scholars have debated whether the kingdom was inspired by an actual hidden city or whether it arose from the deep yearnings of the human spirit. Yet the fact that it continues to inspire pilgrimages and meditations shows how strongly the unseen can shape reality. Shambhala remains beyond reach, a kingdom said to exist in the world yet hidden from it, always vanishing the moment one believes the path has been found. Kaymakla, Turkey, the labyrinth that fell silent. In the depths beneath Cappadocia's plains, there exists a world seemingly crafted not for the living, but for shadows. Kaymakla, one of the most intricate underground cities ever discovered, extends deep into the volcanic rock, its passages twisting so far that silence becomes its own kind of weight. The entrance gives little hint of the vastness below, yet once inside, the sheer scope begins to press upon the mind like a forgotten dream brought suddenly to light. What first appears to be a simple descent quickly unfolds into a series of chambers linked by narrow corridors. Ancient stone doors, perfectly round and weighing tons, still stand ready to seal off entire sections at a moment's notice. Their presence suggests more than mere architecture. They echo the tension of lives lived in fear of forces pressing from above. In these corridors, light flickers weakly, swallowed almost whole by the dark, leaving the imagination to wander where footsteps once hurried. History records that communities retreated here to escape threats, yet the silence of Kaymakla seems to suggest more than just safety. Homes were carved with precision, kitchens with blackened ceilings still mark the presence of fire, and stables reveal the traces of animals once kept far underground. To survive below the earth required more than skill, it demanded surrender to a life where day and night blurred into an endless shadow. This world was not a mere refuge, it was an entire society hidden from the surface. Archaeologists have mapped levels reaching at least 8 stories deep, though only a portion is open to modern visitors. Wells and ventilation shafts plunge through the layers, providing air and water to sustain thousands. Their design reflects a knowledge both practical and strange, for the shafts could also be sealed from below, a reminder that danger might come not only from outside, but from within. Each chamber whispers of a people determined to vanish from sight yet remain alive. The labyrinth's complexity grows with each descent. Grain storage rooms and wine presses sit alongside churches carved directly into the rock, their worn walls bearing faint marks of symbols once meant to protect and guide. In these sacred spaces, the weight of devotion lingers, though silence has replaced prayer. The decision to carve faith into the stone itself suggests that belief had to move underground as completely as the body, hidden away from eyes that might seek to erase it. Legends swell around the silence that followed the city's abandonment. Some claim Kaymakla was left when outside threats receded, while others argue that the depths themselves became unbearable, pressing upon the mind until whole communities chose the open air once more. Yet questions remain unanswered. How many truly lived here at one time, and what final moment led to doors being rolled shut, never to open again? The stones hold no reply, only the echo of absence. Visitors who walk the passageways today often speak of the disorienting turns and the sense of being drawn deeper than expected. Air feels thin and the walls seem to close with each step, leaving one unsure whether escape is close or impossibly far. It is in this confusion that Kaymakla reveals its lingering power. The city was not just built to hide bodies, but to shape minds, to force those within to accept a new reality beneath the earth. Other underground cities in Cappadocia share similar mysteries, yet Kaymakla's vast scale sets it apart. Its tunnels stretch into the unknown, with some passages believed to connect to neighboring complexes miles away. If true, the idea of an entire hidden network beneath the landscape raises the question of how far people were willing to go to ensure survival or secrecy. The land above may have appeared ordinary, but beneath it lay a silent kingdom bound together by stone. Even as archaeologists uncover more, entire sections remain untouched, their darkness unbroken since the last footsteps faded. The deeper levels resist exploration, their air stagnant, their silence unbroken, as though something within demands to be left alone. Each discovery sharpens curiosity, but also strengthens the sense that Kamakla guards its truth, refusing to yield more than fragments. Somewhere in its buried silence, the unanswered reason for its sudden abandonment still waits to be found. Agartha, the hollow earth empire that slipped away. What lies beneath the earth when every horizon seems to close in? Across centuries, the legend of Agartha has lingered in whispered tales and secret manuscripts, described not as a city built of stone, but as an empire hidden in the veins of the world itself. It was said to exist beneath deserts, mountains, and rivers, a sanctuary that remained invisible to the empires on the surface. Legends tell of a kingdom not on the surface of the world, but deep within its hidden heart. Agartha was imagined as a radiant domain where wisdom, technology, and harmony surpassed anything known to humankind above. Unlike ruins that crumble and fade, this empire supposedly endured, protected by the very earth that concealed it. Echoes of drums and chanting are said to resound through caverns never seen by sunlight. These descriptions, drawn from travelers' accounts, paint a world below that pulses with life, as though unseen cities beat like a second heart beneath the soil of Asia. Such imagery gave Agartha the aura of both holiness and dread, a place that might grant enlightenment or swallow the unworthy. For Ferdinand Ossendowski, the whispers of Agartha came from lamas in Mongolia who spoke of realms untouched by time. In his 1922 book Beasts, Men and Gods, he recorded their accounts of a hidden king and a kingdom of extraordinary power beneath the ground. His words spread quickly across Europe, fueling imaginations hungry for mysteries still unconquered. While empires rose and fell across Asia's mountains and plains, stories claimed another empire thrived below them. In Tibetan lore, Agartha was linked to Shambhala, though described as a separate hidden realm, not of the heavens, but of the hollow beneath. To the people who spoke of it, there was no contradiction. The surface world was simply one layer among many. Agartha was said to be ruled by a monarch with wisdom beyond the surface world's understanding. Known in some traditions as the King of the World, he was believed to guide the destiny of nations through hidden channels of influence. Whether real or allegorical, the idea of such unseen power deepened the allure and dread of this subterranean empire. 19th and early 20th century explorers carried the legend into Western imagination. Figures such as Nicholas Roerich, who travelled through Central Asia, collected fragments of the tale and intertwined them with esoteric beliefs of his own. The blending of mysticism, geography, and politics gave Agartha a place not only in folklore, but also in the restless minds of adventurers seeking meaning beyond borders. In hushed monasteries, the tale of a luminous underworld city was guarded like sacred fire. Accounts describe monks who believed they could communicate with the hidden realm through meditation and ritual, their words suggesting that the gateway was less a door in stone than a threshold of consciousness. Such details made Agartha feel both impossibly distant and dangerously near. No map has traced its borders, yet countless hands have drawn them in imagination. Some claimed the entrance lay in Tibet, others in Mongolia, while others pointed to the Himalayas or even the frozen poles. The mystery was not in choosing one path, but in believing that countless passages might lead to the same vanishing place. The story of Agartha endured because it refused to collapse under skepticism. Unlike ruins that can be measured or excavated, this empire lived in the spaces where certainty faltered. To its believers, the absence of proof was not a weakness, but a sign of the world's deepest secret, a reminder that not all kingdoms are meant to be ruled by sunlight. Unlike the buried ruins of ancient cities, Agartha left no fragments of pottery or walls to be uncovered by archaeologists. What kept the story alive was not evidence in the soil, but testimony passed from voice to voice, often in places where history and faith intertwined. The absence of relics did not diminish its weight. Instead, it offered a kind of freedom, allowing the legend to shape-shift across cultures. Each retelling grew less about stones and more about the idea of a hidden order beneath the chaos of the surface world. For some, this very lack of physical proof became its strongest allure, as though the earth itself was conspiring to keep the secret sealed. Across Asia's deserts and mountain ranges, stories still circle of Agartha, the hidden realm whose gates stay shut to the unready. Naus, France, the refuge that vanished from memory. Coordinates mark the site beneath Picardy. Naus, an underground refuge carved into the limestone plateau, not far from Amiens. Hidden beneath quiet farmland, this vast network stretches for more than 2 miles. Its chambers and corridors, shaped by human hands, yet left to the silence of centuries. The immensity of the complex only becomes clear once within, where the stone seems to open endlessly into chamber after chamber. Inscribed on the walls are names, initials, and dates marks of passage left by those who once descended into the earth seeking protection. Layers of soot darken the ceilings, where fires once burned to keep the cold at bay. Each inscription is both evidence and echo, a trace of lives that survived unseen. These marks remain untouched by wind or rain, preserving the memory of hands long gone. No chronicles of the 18th or 19th century lingered on Naus. It slipped soundlessly from public record, its existence erased not by disaster, but by neglect. A place that had safeguarded thousands, faded from collective memory as if it had never been carved at all. Town records that might have noted the caves fell quiet, and the tunnels passed into obscurity, even while the landscape above continued to bear scars of war. The chambers extend in a grid-like pattern, some large enough to gather entire families, others no wider than a narrow hallway. Doorways cut into stone suggest order rather than improvisation, the work of hands that intended permanence. Niches carved into walls may once have held supplies or simple furnishings. Narrow stairways descend from one chamber to another, reinforcing the sense of a community shaped by necessity beneath the earth. If memory had not failed, Naurs might have stood alongside Europe's most cited wartime refuges. Instead, it lay dormant, invisible beneath fields where crops grew undisturbed. Unlike castles or fortresses that rose above the earth, this fortress inverted itself, its strength measured in depth and concealment rather than walls. The contrast between the sheer size of the refuge and the ease with which it was forgotten is unsettling, as though the act of forgetting itself were deliberate. The space once held thousands of voices, now it holds only air and dust. Silence presses in where conversations once filled the chambers. A refuge that protected lives in times of war now protects nothing but absence, a monument to forgetting rather than remembrance. Even the echoes seem muted, as if sound is swallowed by the stone. It is possible to imagine children's laughter carried through the passageways or whispered prayers offered in haste, but only imagination restores what history has left behind. Tunnels, chambers, carvings, silence. Each element survives, yet the unity of their purpose dissolved with time. The function of Naurs was remembered locally only in fragments, as if its history had been reduced to scattered words without a narrative to bind them. In villages nearby, stories surfaced occasionally of caves beneath the fields, yet they remained unverified rumors more than facts. It was not until the 20th century that systematic exploration revealed the extent of what lay below. In the 20th century, rediscovery brought the underground maze back into the light. Researchers and archaeologists documented the extent of the passages and catalogued the markings left by soldiers of the First World War who had stumbled upon Naurs and added their own inscriptions. What emerged was not legend resurrected, but truth exhumed from neglect. The thousands of soldier names etched during the Great War turned Naurs into a palimpsest of refuge upon refuge, a layered record of the hidden and the forgotten. These names joined those of villagers centuries older, uniting strangers in stone across time. Whether Naos was forgotten by accident or by design remains unclear. A refuge so vast and so carefully constructed does not vanish without cause. Yet for nearly 200 years, it was absent from memory, its entrance concealed by nothing more than time and indifference. The reasons for this silence remain disputed. Some suggest disuse slowly stripped Naos from collective memory, while others note how easily wartime secrets can be lost once no longer needed. What is certain is that an entire world existed below ground, and then it was gone. What endures is not legend, but the riddle of how a sanctuary for thousands could be erased so completely, leaving behind only walls that remember what history chose to forget. Acacor, Brazil, the vanished city beneath the Amazon. Legends of hidden civilizations have long haunted the Amazon rainforest, but few tales have stirred such debate as that of Acacor, a supposed underground city said to lie beneath the dense green canopy of Brazil. The story first surfaced in the 1970 seconds, when an extraordinary account promised that beneath the tangled jungle, a lost world might still be waiting. At the heart of this mystery stood Tatunka Nara, a man who claimed to be a tribal chieftain and guardian of a secret city. His words carried echoes of an ancient lineage, and he spoke of vast subterranean halls carved into stone where his people had taken refuge centuries ago. The account was vivid, filled with names, rituals, and structures that painted Acacor as more than a myth. Yet the deeper one looked, the more the tale seemed to blur the line between history and fabrication. From the moment Tatunka Nara's claims were published by German journalist Karl Brugger in the Chronicle of Acacor, readers were captivated. Brugger presented the story as a detailed narrative of lost tribes, advanced knowledge, and hidden chambers stretching beneath the earth. For some, it was the discovery of a lifetime. For others, it was an elaborate performance staged by a man who knew how to weave the threads of legend into something compelling. Mystery deepened when explorers began to follow Tatunka into the Amazon. Promises of ruins and secret passages lured adventurers into uncharted territory, yet their journeys rarely delivered what they had hoped. Reports circulated of treacherous paths, shifting rivers, and dangerous encounters that left little to show for the efforts. The rainforest itself became part of the riddle, guarding its secrets with a silence as vast as its trees. European explorers of the 20th century also noted fragments of similar tales during their expeditions, recording indigenous stories of ancestral migrations into caverns said to stretch beneath the jungle. These scattered references, though never precise, created an unsettling harmony with Tatunka Nara's narrative, suggesting that the idea of subterranean sanctuaries had existed long before his account came to light. Curiosity soon gave way to suspicion as contradictions in Tatunka Nara's story began to surface. Researchers questioned his origins, and some even doubted whether he was who he claimed to be. While his descriptions of Acacor were rich in detail, evidence remained elusive. No stones, no chambers, no carvings were brought forth to prove the underground city's existence. Still, the absence of proof did not erase the fascination that had already taken hold. Patterns of disappearance only added to the city's allure. Several explorers who pursued Acacor were reported missing, their expeditions ending without clear answers. Whispers grew that the forest had claimed them, as though the legend itself punished those who sought to uncover it. Each vanishing reinforced the sense that Acacor was less a place to be found than a shadow meant to be chased. Critics of the tale pointed to forgery and invention, noting that Tatunka's identity was later tied to deception and unresolved crime. Karl Brugger himself met a violent end in 1984, gunned down in Rio de Janeiro under circumstances that were never fully explained. His death became entangled with the legend, as if the mystery of Acacor had spilled from the page into reality, leaving questions that would never be answered. Even as skepticism grew, the myth refused to die. The Amazon has always been a landscape of secrets, with ancient geoglyphs, undiscovered tribes, and ruins still being revealed today. Against this backdrop, the possibility of a hidden city beneath the earth seemed just within reach. The jungle's ability to hide entire civilizations kept Acacor alive in the imagination, even when reason suggested otherwise. Stories of Akakor continue to drift between fiction and possibility, caught in the vastness of a forest that is itself larger than life. No evidence has ever been unearthed to prove the city exists, yet the idea persists, carried by the weight of what the Amazon has already concealed for centuries. The boundary between truth and legend remains as thick as the canopy overhead. And so, the city of Akakor lingers not in stone or soil, but in the shadows of memory and imagination, a place whispered about, yet never seen, forever hidden beneath the endless green. Edinburgh vaults, Scotland, the sealed city below. In the late 18th century, Edinburgh expanded upward and downward. The South Bridge, completed in 1788, was built with vaults beneath its arches to support the weight of the structures above. These dark chambers, tucked beneath the city, were designed to serve as workshops and storage rooms for the bustling trade of the capital. Beneath bustling taverns and narrow closes, a second city took form. Merchants moved goods through these arched spaces, stone corridors echoing with the sounds of industry. For a short time, the vaults reflected the ambition of a city determined to modernize and grow. Arched chambers and passageways of South Bridge were intended for trade and storage, yet conditions soon betrayed their purpose. Poor ventilation and constant dampness made the vaults unfit for respectable business, leaving them abandoned within decades of their creation. What had been conceived as progress sank into silence. When damp and darkness crept in, businesses abandoned the vaults to those with fewer choices. The poor, outcasts, and immigrants carved out lives in the deserted chambers, creating homes out of the forgotten underground. As daylight above carried the noise of markets and carriages, life below moved in whispers. The poor, the forgotten, and the criminal underworld filled the spaces that respectable society left behind. Taverns and gambling dens thrived in hidden corners, while thieves and smugglers used the vaults to trade unseen. Among the shadows, families struggled to survive, children growing up in spaces where the sun never reached. Fragments of shoes, clay pipes, and children's toys revealed lives lived in shadow. Archaeological surveys uncovered these traces in the late 20th century, confirming that entire communities had once crowded into the vaults. The discovery of cooking pots and simple tools spoke of resilience, even in the face of deprivation. Excavations in the 1980 seconds revealed unexpected architectural features that hint at the complexity of the vault's design. Hidden staircases, narrow passageways, and small chambers suggested that the builders anticipated both storage and occupation. Though how residents adapted the spaces remains partly unknown, evidence of soot on the ceilings indicates that fires were used for cooking or warmth, turning these stone corridors into both home and refuge for the marginalized. Historical records show that fires occasionally swept through the South Bridge, forcing desperate residents to flee the smoke-filled chambers. Accounts from the time suggest that lives were lost, though the true numbers remain hidden in the city's archives. Each disaster seemed to deepen the sense that the vaults belonged to the forgotten, not the thriving streets above. By the 19th century, rumours began to eclipse fact. The vaults were said to harbour criminals plotting in secret, as well as desperate souls who never emerged from the shadows again. Tales of body snatchers, men who sold stolen corpses to the city's medical schools, were tied to the underground passages, whether proven or not. Such stories made the vaults a place feared even by those who lived nearby. As modern Edinburgh grew, the underground city slipped further into obscurity. Entire stretches of the vaults were bricked up, their entrances lost behind stone walls. For decades, the spaces were not spoken of, almost as if the city itself wanted to bury its memory. Only in the late 20th century were the vaults gradually reopened, their silence broken by historians, archaeologists, and curious visitors. Stories of spirits began to cling to the walls, whispered by guides and visitors alike. Claims of sudden chills, strange echoes, and fleeting figures have made the vaults one of the most haunted places in Scotland. Whether born of folklore or memory, the accounts add another layer to a site already heavy with history. Visitors today speak of an almost tangible shift in temperature, when moving from one section to another, a reminder that the vaults retain the memories of their past inhabitants. Moss and damp cling stubbornly to the walls, as if the stone itself resists full illumination, preserving shadows where secrets once thrived. Guides insist that some chambers are best left unexplored, warning that curiosity alone may awaken echoes from centuries past. Entire stretches of the vaults are still closed off, locked away behind stone and silence. Some sections were sealed deliberately in the 19th century, entombing whatever remained inside. To this day, the reasons for their closure are debated, as though the city itself wanted parts of its underworld forgotten. Even now, beneath the stone heart of Edinburgh, doors remain unopened and chambers untouched, waiting for the day when someone dares to break the silence. Cusco Tunnels, Peru, the labyrinth that disappeared. In the heart of the Inca Empire, Cusco thrived as a center of power and ritual. The city, meticulously planned, rose on hills crisscrossed by stone streets, yet beneath the bustling plazas and temples lay networks of tunnels that few modern maps even acknowledge. These passages, carved into volcanic rock, are said to have connected key sites, hiding secrets that might never be fully understood. Through layers of earth built up over centuries, volcanic stone tunnels snake hidden beneath the squares. Some corridors are wide enough to walk side by side, while others narrow into spaces barely tall enough to pass. The craftsmanship suggests a deliberate design, but centuries of earthquakes and landslides have obscured its full extent. Sections of previously uncharted walls came to light in the 1980 seconds, uncovered by careful archaeological work. These discoveries hinted at chambers once used for ceremonial purposes, now inaccessible due to debris and natural collapse. The material remains ceramic fragments, carved stones, and worn steps suggest that the tunnels were active spaces, yet no complete route has ever been traced. Certain entrances are sealed by time itself, blocked by landslides and centuries of decay. Locals speak of passages that appear suddenly between narrow streets, only to vanish when approached. Whether these shifts are illusions or structural collapses, they contribute to the sense that the labyrinth is alive, resisting full comprehension. Some passages contain evidence of water management, including channels carved into the stone floor to divert rain and underground springs. These features hint that the tunnels were designed with both practicality and longevity in mind, allowing them to remain functional even under harsh conditions. The ingenuity suggests the labyrinth was integral to the city's daily life, rather than a mere hidden refuge. Residents occasionally report passages that vanish as they approach, leaving only smooth stone where a doorway once stood. Some of these openings were documented during colonial times, but modern excavation cannot confirm their existence. The uncertainty has fueled speculation, yet every report stems from real observations, preserving the tension between recorded history and lived experience. Worn steps, shards of pottery, and remnants of ceremonial offerings indicate the tunnels served purposes beyond mere storage. Certain chambers display signs of repeated human use, including soot-stained ceilings and niches carved into the walls. These details indicate that rituals, trade, or emergency shelter could have taken place, although the precise purpose of each corridor remains unknown. Experts argue over whether these subterranean networks connected sacred sites or served as emergency hideouts. Some suggest the labyrinth was a strategic element of Cusco's design, allowing elites to move undetected during conflicts or ceremonies. Others maintain that the tunnels offered refuge for ordinary residents during invasions, yet no definitive blueprint has ever been found. Found within the rubble, ceremonial objects and textile fragments suggest these chambers were spaces for rituals, perhaps linked to seasonal celebrations or honoring ancestors. The careful placement of these items within recesses indicates deliberate intent, reinforcing the idea that the tunnels were not solely utilitarian, but also spiritual in purpose. Maps drawn in the colonial period hint at labyrinths that no longer exist above or below ground. Surveyors recorded passages that were later filled in, altered, or collapsed, leaving only fragmented accounts of a vast underground network. The partial maps, combined with modern archaeological traces, suggest a scale far beyond what can now be navigated. Walls that turn unexpectedly and staircases that lead nowhere were among the unusual features uncovered during excavation. These features have led some researchers to speculate that the tunnels incorporated symbolic elements, aligning with Inca cosmology or marking hidden ceremonial spaces. Even the simplest passages might have held layered meanings, now lost to history. Despite centuries of study, much of the labyrinth has disappeared from memory and record. Attempts to trace its full extent are frustrated by collapses, modern construction, and natural erosion. Yet evidence of its presence, stone steps, niches, and faint walls remains, suggesting that a city beneath the city still whispers its secrets. The city above thrives, yet beneath it lies a vanished labyrinth that continues to defy explanation. Every doorway that disappears into solid rock, every corridor swallowed by time, reminds scholars and visitors alike that some parts of Cusco are meant to remain unseen. The tunnels endure, hidden beneath centuries of stone and history, a disappearing labyrinth that lingers just out of reach. Hypogeum of Calsafieni, Malta, the temple that vanished into silence. Priests may have moved silently through narrow corridors, carrying offerings to unseen chambers deep beneath the earth. Each step echoed against limestone walls, carrying the weight of rituals performed centuries ago, where the living sought communion with ancestors whose presence lingered in shadow. The silence of these halls was deliberate, as if the temple itself demanded respect and secrecy. The hypogeum ceilings curve like waves, carved with precision into soft limestone over centuries of patient labor. The chambers are stacked in 3 levels, one above the other, forming a vertical labyrinth that seems impossibly engineered for its time. Carved niches, altars, and passageways suggest an architectural purpose beyond mere burial, hinting at spiritual and ceremonial functions that modern researchers are still unraveling. Sound travels strangely in the underground halls, carrying whispers that echo as if the temple itself remembers the chants of the past. Certain chambers amplify vibrations in ways that modern scientists describe as acoustic resonance, suggesting the builders were aware of sound's role in ritual experience. The effect is subtle yet profound, creating an atmosphere that has confounded visitors and researchers for decades. In 1902, workers excavating near Galsflieni stumbled upon a hidden staircase, revealing the first glimpse of the subterranean complex. The accidental discovery sparked a wave of archaeological interest, uncovering chambers filled with human remains, pottery, and carved figurines. The depth and sophistication of the structure surprised experts, as it predates other known subterranean temples by centuries, placing its construction around 4,000–2,500 BCE. Analysis of skeletal remains shows careful placement, suggesting complex funerary rites that scholars still struggle to interpret. Bodies were laid in crouched positions, often accompanied by red ochre, which preserved bones and indicated symbolic significance. Some chambers appear to have been reserved for select individuals, possibly priests or leaders, revealing a hierarchy that exists silently in the temple's layout. Malta's prehistoric period was marked by the rise of megalithic culture, with temples and underground chambers forming centers of spiritual life. The hypogeum stands apart for its depth and secrecy, a hidden city of the dead that mirrors the settlements above. Its construction required knowledge of structural integrity and spatial planning, yet the methods used remain largely mysterious, leaving open questions about the skill and organization of its builders. Some corridors appear deliberately misaligned, leaving researchers to wonder whether geometry or symbolism dictated their orientation. Certain doorways do not lead to other chambers, but end in solid rock, while others curve unexpectedly, creating spaces that challenge navigation. These deliberate choices hint at purposes that go beyond practicality, suggesting the labyrinthine layout had ritual or mystical significance. Faint traces of pigments remain on certain walls, suggesting that some chambers were once adorned with vibrant colors that have long since faded. Red, ochre, and black tones hint at ceremonial decoration, perhaps intended to mark sacred spaces or guide ritual participants through the labyrinth. These remnants offer a glimpse of a vanished visual culture, reinforcing the sense that the hypogeum was both a physical and spiritual masterpiece. Access to the hypogeum is now limited, its fragile walls and delicate frescoes threatened by humidity and human presence. Climate control and careful monitoring protect the site, but many chambers remain unseen, leaving portions of the temple unexplored. The silence that once enveloped its rituals continues today, maintained by stone and restriction, ensuring that the temple keeps some secrets from the modern world. Carvings on walls depict abstract shapes, spirals, and figures whose meaning has been debated for decades. Some suggest these were symbolic representations of life and death. Others argue they mark celestial events or spiritual concepts lost to time. Every etched line carries a fragment of intent, preserved in shadow, and every shadow seems to guard the mysteries of a vanished culture. Even with decades of study, the hypogeum resists full comprehension. Scholars can describe its chambers, measure its acoustics, and catalogue its remains, yet the essence of its purpose, the rhythms of its ancient ceremonies, and the lives of those who walked its halls remain largely unknowable. The temple vanishes into silence not by collapse or decay, but by the weight of time and the limits of human understanding. Echoes of voices long silent linger in the corridors of the temple beneath a vanished sanctuary that endures under modern streets. Hopi underworld cities, North America, the people who went below. A faint scrape of stone echoes through an empty chamber, as if the walls themselves remember footsteps that vanished centuries ago. The mesas of northeastern Arizona conceal layers of history, where Hopi oral tradition speaks of hidden tunnels and subterranean refuges, sites known only to those initiated into the sacred knowledge. These passages were said to connect villages and ceremonial centers, forming a network beneath the sun-baked landscape. Cool air drifts along the narrow corridors, carrying a scent of earth and minerals that speaks of centuries of silence. Travelers long ago may have descended for protection during times of upheaval, retreating into spaces carefully carved from sandstone. Every inhalation in these corridors seems to summon the presence of lives that once moved with purpose in the shadowed chambers. Shadows stretch across walls carved with patterns whose meaning is lost to outsiders, twisting into symbols that hint at both function and spiritual significance. Some designs are simple grooves, others intricate spirals and geometric forms, suggesting that the tunnels were more than mere shelters. They were spaces of memory, ritual, and passage. Footprints pressed into soft soil suggest careful passage by unseen hands, sometimes adult, sometimes child-sized. Archaeological surveys of Hopi villages in the 20th century have revealed evidence of subterranean structures, but many entrances remain hidden or inaccessible. Each step hints at human presence, yet no clear map exists to confirm the extent of the underworld labyrinths. Small fires may have once warmed these concealed passages, as hinted by the faint traces of pottery shards left behind. The walls seem to pulse with a rhythm that mirrors the heartbeat of those who walked here long ago, a subtle cadence that blends the natural resonance of the rock with imagined echoes of human life. The Hopi described these journeys as rites of transition, where physical descent mirrors spiritual transformation. A collapsed tunnel forces travelers to reconsider the path, hinting at passages lost to time. Stories passed down through generations speak of entire communities disappearing into these labyrinths, leaving the surface world behind. The vanishing of such settlements is woven into cultural memory, a warning and a record of endurance. Stalactites drip steadily, a slow percussion marking the silence of hidden halls. Light penetrates only faintly from narrow shafts, emphasizing the labyrinthine quality of the tunnels. Every turn seems to conceal another chamber, each as enigmatic as the last, resisting discovery by those uninitiated. Etched stones reveal abstract figures whose meanings remain elusive, fragments of a visual language encoded in the rock. Anthropologists and ethnographers have recorded these etchings, noting their similarity to motifs on kivas and pottery above ground. The subterranean imagery suggests continuity between the underworld spaces and Hopi spiritual practices, linking life above with journeys below. Narrow alcoves carved into the walls may have held sacred objects or offerings, suggesting a ritual purpose intertwined with survival. What was once a bustling site of ritual now lies untouched, frozen in shadowed memory. Scholars debate whether these spaces were primarily ceremonial, protective, or functional, yet the lack of comprehensive access leaves certainty out of reach. Every new excavation reveals fragments, never the full picture. Voices of the past seem to vanish before reaching the present, leaving only questions in the dark. Hopi elders maintain that the underworld cities were never meant for outsiders, and their secrecy ensures the tunnels remain a space of both reverence and mystery. Though modern mapping and study attempt to chart these hidden networks, the full labyrinth and the people who once moved within it remains beyond reach. A glimmer of painted stone, hidden in a corner of a collapsed passage, hints at artistry once shared in secret ceremonies, a fleeting proof that life and culture thrived beneath the mesas. The fragments inspire wonder, but also reinforce the sense that most of what lies below will never be fully known. Layers of soil, rock, and shadow preserve the memory of generations who descended and then returned or did not. The labyrinth continues to guard its secrets, holding the traces of journeys taken in silence and leaving behind only echoes for those who seek them. The tunnel's twists and blind corners would have required intimate knowledge, implying that only select members of the community could navigate them safely. The people who went below exist now only in the quiet resonance of stone and the whispered guidance of the Hopi, a civilization folded into its own subterranean heart, hidden yet ever present. Beijing's underground city, China, the vanished Cold War metropolis. In 1969, construction began in secret beneath the streets of Beijing, a city determined to prepare for the looming threat of nuclear conflict. Government directives ensured that no outsider knew of the vast subterranean plans, and workers were bound by strict confidentiality. What took shape below ground was to become a sprawling network designed to house tens of thousands of people in the event of war. Corridors stretched for kilometers, some wide enough to allow vehicles to pass, while others narrowed into claustrophobic walkways. Concrete walls bore the marks of hurried excavation, yet the engineering was meticulous, intended to support the weight of modern Beijing above. The scale of the underground complex was staggering, with entire neighborhoods hidden below the city's surface. Workers moved in shifts, carrying supplies through dimly lit halls. Their footsteps echoed against stone and concrete, a rhythm that mirrored the urgency of the Cold War era. Above, life went on in the streets of Beijing, unaware that a city within a city was being painstakingly built, a place meant to shield citizens from devastation. Access was tightly controlled. Checkpoints, coded passes, and armed guards ensured that only trusted personnel entered the tunnels. Knowledge of the underground metropolis was compartmentalized, with many workers unaware of the full scope of what they were constructing. Secrecy became a tool of survival, preserving both the city and the people who maintained it. Above, markets thrived, children played, and cars rattled across bridges, while beneath the surface, entire streets, classrooms, and even hospitals were carefully laid out. Shops stocked with canned goods and medical supplies stood ready, and dormitories were prepared for thousands. Every detail suggested a city capable of sustaining life indefinitely, a fully functional metropolis hidden from view. Bunk beds and communal areas were constructed alongside administrative offices and control rooms. Ventilation shafts, water systems, and concealed entrances were integrated into the network, reflecting the precise calculations required for long-term habitation. The tunnels formed an underground mirror of the city above, complete with street-like corridors and open squares for gathering. Stockpiles of food and medical supplies filled hidden rooms, each item labeled with expiration dates and instructions, a testament to the planner's meticulous preparation for survival. Decades later, many sections lie abandoned, blocked, or flooded. The city never fully saw use, a remnant of a fear that faded with the end of the Cold War. Some areas are open to limited public tours, revealing the scale of the project, yet the majority remains sealed. The empty halls, once bustling with life and labor, now echo only with the sound of silence. Some tunnels feature narrow escape routes and reinforced doors, hinting at contingency plans for attacks that never came, leaving the architecture both protective and haunting. Explorers and journalists who have ventured into accessible sections report an almost surreal experience. Long, shadowed corridors stretch out of view, punctuated by rooms that could have been shops, classrooms, or sleeping quarters. The architecture itself tells a story of preparation and urgency, a city designed for a population that never moved in. Government documents declassified in recent decades confirm the existence of the tunnels, yet their full extent remains a mystery. Maps are incomplete, and much of the underground network is inaccessible. Historians suggest that the project may extend for more than 85 square kilometers, though precise measurements are impossible to verify, leaving the city's true scale to speculation. Silent reminders of the past persist in scattered supplies, faded signage, and rusting machinery. Electrical wiring hangs from ceilings, and remnants of staircases and ventilation ducts hint at lives once imagined below ground. Despite decades of abandonment, the city remains a monument to Cold War fears and human ingenuity, a testament to preparation and secrecy. Faded murals and painted instructions on walls reveal attempts to make the subterranean city feel familiar and organized, a surprising touch of humanity amid the concrete and steel. Above ground, Beijing thrives as a bustling modern capital, its citizens unaware of the hidden metropolis beneath their feet. The tunnels, once meant to shelter a population in wartime, now linger in shadow, half forgotten by time and deliberately sealed from view. The city that was built to survive a nuclear catastrophe has instead become a ghostly enigma beneath the living city. Much of Beijing's underground city remains hidden, a labyrinth frozen in time, leaving only fragments of memory and steel as proof that a metropolis once vanished beneath the streets, waiting silently for a future it may never see. Petra's subterranean chambers, Jordan, the lost Nabatean halls. Centuries before Petra became a famed city of stone, the Nabateans carved hidden chambers beneath the cliffs, shaping spaces that would vanish almost entirely from view. These underground halls were hewn with meticulous precision, following the contours of red sandstone cliffs that rise abruptly from the desert floor. Shadows cling to crevices and niches, making the passageways nearly imperceptible from the surface. The ingenuity of their design allowed the chambers to serve multiple purposes, from storage and shelter to sacred gatherings, yet the full intent remains obscured by time. Red sandstone cliffs rise abruptly, their shadows hiding passageways known only to the original architects. Natural fissures were expanded into corridors, while rock overhangs concealed entrances that could easily be missed by the casual observer. The stone's color and texture blend seamlessly with the surrounding landscape, so that even seasoned explorers might walk past without noticing the hidden halls beneath. This concealment ensured both protection and secrecy, a hallmark of Nabatean mastery. Whispers of subterranean halls have long stirred the curiosity of explorers and locals alike. Ancient travelers wrote of pathways leading into darkness, though few could verify their claims. Oral traditions describe narrow tunnels and hidden chambers where precious goods were safeguarded and sacred rites performed. These stories created an aura of mystery that drew adventurers into Petra's complex labyrinth, hoping to uncover what had been lost for centuries. Stone steps and alcoves, carefully shaped by ancient hands, appear in narrow crevices uncovered during excavations. Archaeologists have documented rooms with niches carved into walls, possibly for lamps or ceremonial objects. Some chambers feature small cisterns, carefully chiseled to collect and store rainwater, reflecting an advanced understanding of resource management. Each discovery adds layers to a puzzle that remains incomplete, hinting at purposes that cannot be fully reconstructed. Ingenious channels for water management wind through the underground chambers, hinting at a sophisticated society attuned to both survival and ritual. These conduits connect multiple halls and extend towards the outer edges of the cliffs, suggesting that the Nabateans planned their subterranean city with both functionality and discretion in mind. Despite centuries of erosion, the alignment of these passages demonstrates remarkable foresight and skill. Many entrances are now obscured by rockfall, swallowed by centuries of erosion and time. Survey teams have found entire sections blocked by rubble, their corridors lost to the centuries. These vanished sections contribute to Petra's reputation as a city that conceals its past, leaving modern visitors to imagine the scale and complexity of what lies hidden beneath the cliffs. Intricate carvings adorn certain chambers, symbols now lost to history, yet hinting at sacred or communal functions. Animal motifs and geometric patterns, though weathered, remain visible in certain alcoves. These designs hint at rituals or cultural expressions that were integral to life within the halls. Scholars speculate that these carvings marked spaces for ceremonies, perhaps even functioning as guides for those navigating the subterranean labyrinth. Almost by chance, archaeologists in recent years discovered these hidden halls and carefully charted their dimensions. Modern technology has revealed layers of tunnels and chambers previously undetectable, yet only a fraction of the subterranean network has been documented. Each discovery raises more questions than answers, reinforcing the impression that Petra still guards secrets inaccessible to those above. The cool silence within these subterranean spaces contrasts sharply with the blazing sun above, creating a world apart. Air remains surprisingly fresh in some chambers, while others are damp and echo with every footstep. The interplay of light and shadow, combined with the scent of stone and earth, evokes an atmosphere both sacred and forbidding, reminding all who enter that these halls were never meant to be ordinary. Although no written records survive, the arrangement of the chambers hints at strategic use for storage, refuge, or ceremonial gatherings. Their positioning relative to surface structures suggests deliberate planning, integrating hidden spaces seamlessly into the broader urban fabric. The chamber's existence reveals a level of organization and foresight that has long been overlooked, underscoring the sophistication of the Nabatean civilization. Linking courtyards and larger halls, the corridors form an underground network whose full extent is still unknown. Many tunnels intersect at angles that complicate navigation, and some chambers open into voids that defy full measurement. Visitors and researchers alike are reminded that the labyrinth was designed to protect its contents and obscure its scale from casual discovery. A door, undiscovered and silent, rests somewhere beneath the cliffs, its secrets kept by the desert itself. Kuba Pedi, Australia, the desert town that slipped underground. Scorching winds whipped across the barren expanse of South Australia, shifting dunes and blurring the horizon into a haze of ochre dust. In this harsh, unforgiving land, survival demanded ingenuity. By the early 20th century, settlers had discovered opals buried beneath the arid soil, and the promise of wealth drew fortune seekers into the heart of the desert. Yet the sun's relentless heat soon revealed that life above ground was nearly impossible to endure for long stretches. Miners dug into the earth to escape the sweltering temperatures, creating dwellings and workspaces that stretched deep beneath the desert surface. These spaces were more than temporary shelters, they became permanent homes, a city secreted away from the unforgiving elements. Visitors on the sparse surface often had no idea that a labyrinth of life existed below. Miners' lanterns flickered against rough sandstone walls, illuminating corridors that twisted and turned far beyond the view of the casual eye. Rooms branched off from each main tunnel, some serving as bedrooms, others as makeshift churches or stores. The subterranean network, initially intended for shelter during opal hunts, gradually transformed into a full-fledged community, complete with all the trappings of a town above ground. Small carvings, forgotten tools, and rusting mining equipment bore witness to the persistence of those who shaped the underground environment blending survival with a quiet ingenuity that seemed almost otherworldly. Communities adapted quickly, shaping their subterranean surroundings to mimic life on the surface. Stables, bakeries, and even hotels were carved from sandstone, their walls both protecting and defining daily existence. Residents developed clever ventilation systems to keep the air moving and prevent the tunnels from becoming stifling. The city beneath Cuba Pedy became an invisible twin to the sparse settlement above, a place where the heat and isolation of the desert could be endured. Dusty streets above seemed nearly abandoned during the day, as residents sought refuge below. Only at dawn or dusk did figures appear, moving supplies or heading to work in the shallow shafts that still led to the Sunday. Life in the tunnels was self-contained, with intricate passageways connecting homes and communal spaces. Above-ground landmarks offered little clue to the extent of the hidden city below, maintaining the sense of a world slipping quietly out of view. Stories passed quietly among residents spoke of tunnels that seemed to stretch endlessly, sometimes intersecting with other hidden chambers, unknown even to the town's own inhabitants. While opal mining dictated much of the activity, these passages became spaces of shelter, secrecy, and ingenuity. Children learned the network like a second home, running along passages that adults navigated with careful familiarity, their lives intertwined with stone and shadow. The desert sun burned without mercy, reinforcing the necessity of life underground. Tunnels insulated the residents from extreme temperatures that could easily surpass 40 degrees Celsius during the summer month. The architecture was both practical and surreal. Homes, shops, and even churches, carved entirely from earth and stone, gave the impression of a city simultaneously alive and vanishing, hidden from the unobservant eye. The network of rooms seemed to breathe, shifting slightly as if the earth itself acknowledged the human presence within. The ingenuity of the town's founders created a world apart from the desert, a city invisible yet unmistakably alive for those who knew where to look. In the quiet of a subterranean living room, the contrast between life above and life below was stark. Cool shadows replaced scorching heat, and the hum of electricity and distant chatter filled the tunnels with the rhythm of everyday existence. Families cooked, worked, and slept within carved chambers, sustaining a community that thrived entirely out of sight. Tunnels branched like veins beneath the town, some leading to opal mines, others to hidden homes or communal halls. The labyrinthine system evolved over decades, reflecting both necessity and creativity, a silent testimony to human adaptability in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Visitors could explore only fragments, glimpses into a world that seemed to recede further into secrecy with every passing year. In the desert above, Cuba Pedy might appear still and lifeless, but underground, the city continued its quiet, hidden pulse. Rooms, tunnels, and passageways held stories of ambition, survival, and invention. A civilization tucked into the earth as if waiting to be rediscovered. And yet, in the shifting sands and shadowed tunnels, Cuba Pedy endures as a city that vanishes just as surely as it exists.